I'm Barry Kislowitz, and welcome to another episode of Leadership Lenses, a podcast designed for heads of school, menalim, Rosh yeshivas, and anyone else who wants to lead, enhance, and improve Jewish day schools and yeshivas. Each time we take one dilemma and spend about 15 minutes sharing thoughts, insights, hopefully something that you can find helpful. If you want to hear more from us, you can always find us at www.kislowitzconsulting.com, on our Substack, Leadership Lenses, or on LinkedIn, Barry Kislowitz or Kislowitz Consulting. Today's dilemma is fairly timely. Many of us have just gone through a number of these conversations, and I was just speaking yesterday to a principal who had gone through one. This is the time of year, for some of us right now, for some of us it might have been a few weeks ago, where we need to deliver some difficult news to our teachers. Now, you might be thinking the difficult news is you're fired. We don't have a job for you. We're not renewing your contract. But in some ways, that's actually the less difficult conversation. It's a terrible conversation. No one enjoys having it. If you do enjoy having it, you might want to see some about that. But that conversation, you deliver bad news, and then on some levels, you're done. You might have a few more months, but you certainly don't have an endless time to continue working with that individual. The difficult conversation I'm referring to is when you have to tell your teachers that their job for next year won't be exactly the same as their job was this year. Maybe you need them to teach a different grade, a different subject, a different schedule. And whatever it is that changes, I hear over and over from principals that they have difficult, challenging conversations with these teachers. Teachers are upset. They feel like, my life was working. This was going well. Why are you changing it now, right? Why? I was teaching the 11th grade social studies. I've been doing it for 5 years. Why are you sticking me in 9th grade geography now? That's not fair. I have to re-prepare. I have to adjust. Or last year, all my teaching periods were in a row. I got to leave right afterwards. And next year, you're telling me I have to be here almost the entire day. Now, we all know that schedules, grade choices, discipline choices, all of this goes up and down from year to year. I might have a great schedule this year as a teacher, a more challenging one next year, and an easier one the year after. But every time you have to tell the teacher they're taking a step in a direction that they don't love, that's going to be a difficult conversation. And what comes into play here is what I like to call the always never rule, right? So as soon as they had that good schedule, they've always had a good schedule. And they've never had to stay later or teach something new, be in a grade that they don't love. And when I hear principals talking about this, I hear in their voice just how difficult and trying this conversation is. Because this is not a person who you're saying, we can't employ you next year and we're going to have a few awkward, challenging months together and wish you well and hope that you are successful in your next position. This is a person who is going to be with you next year and the year after that and the year after that. But right now, they might be, in extreme cases, crying in your office because you've told them that they're getting a teaching assignment that doesn't work for them or that they feel doesn't work for them. So how do you approach these conversations? I've really seen principals do this in one of two ways. Well, let's say 3 ways. Way number 1 is to do it and feel terrible. You deliver the news, you empathize, you're sitting with the teacher when they cry, you're going through it, you're feeling terrible about what you did, and you're probably not sleeping much the next night. So now you know I added a third way. That way is one that I would say maybe we should try and put that aside. 2 other ways that might be a little bit more productive, though each has its challenges. The second way is to develop a sort of armor, a sort of self-protection where you go in and you say, look, my job is to deliver bad news. Marty Linsky, Leadership on the Line, defined leadership as the art of dishing out disappointment at the rate that people can absorb. And in the spring, as educational leaders, we have to dish out some disappointment. And you know that it's not your fault, you didn't do anything wrong, and anything they say or do is not going to touch you because this is your job and you are doing your job. That's what I like to call the armoring up approach. Now, it's effective on some levels. Often for the principal who does that, they might not feel as bad about it. They might not be upset. They might not be up the next night, but it's not always so good for the teacher. And it's not necessarily good for the culture of the school and the culture that you're trying to build if you're trying to generate community and warmth and support and love. And so recently I've been thinking about a third way. And I call this way approaching the conversation from a seat of compassion. And I love to use the metaphor of a lifeguard. So if you can picture one of those lifeguard chairs that they climb up, you perch yourself on top. So I encourage principals, as you're going into one of these difficult situations, you need to do two things. Number one, you need to climb up into your chair. You need to understand that this isn't personal. It's not you and a friend, you and an acquaintance, just talking things out and you're doing something that's upsetting to them. It's you in a job. You sitting up there on a lifeguard's chair, making sure every kid in the pool is safe. That's a different position. That changes how you look at it. You're taking a bird's eye view. In adaptive leadership, we might say you're going up to the balcony and you're looking at it from a different perspective. That on its own is not enough. It has to be accompanied by what I would call taking a compassionate seat. So compassion in this sense is different than empathy. It's certainly different than owning or identifying with the other person's feelings. Compassion is, I'm taking a bird's eye view. My job is to deliver this news. I'm keeping all the kids in the pool safe, and I have to take that perspective. And because of that, I can allow myself to be fully compassionate. I can acknowledge that it is extremely difficult as a teacher to feel like you have the rug pulled out from under you. You wanted position A, you wanted schedule B, you wanted class C, and none of that's happening this year. And you might not have much of a choice in the matter. And I get it. And I feel that that is a challenging piece for you as a teacher, but I don't feel that I've caused it. I don't feel like I'm in some sort of argument or debate. I don't take on and own the responsibility for your emotions. Now, ironically, and I think it's somewhat counterintuitive, the more we approach things from a seat of compassion, the more we are able to resist owning the other person's emotions. Because compassion is the opposite of guilt. We're there. We're fully sitting in the moment. We are allowing ourselves to feel and to connect to the other person, but we know that we are not the other person. We aren't responsible for the emotions of the other person. Our responsibility is to deliver news and to guide and to protect this whole pool, this whole school as best we can. And that's something that we can almost take pride in. Not that we enjoy the difficult conversations, but we take pride in the fact that we are approaching them as effectively and as compassionately as we can. Now, that doesn't mean, of course, that you are going to get every word right and every sentence right and never upset someone based on how you phrase things. We're all human and we are all going to make mistakes. But if we can, from an overall perspective, say, I approach difficult conversations from compassion. That enables us not to get drawn into fights, not to get drawn into arguments, and not to get drawn into that guilty sense of feeling like you have to own the other person's feelings. Now, again, we often try to own those feelings because we think that's the nicest thing to do, but it's not. The best thing that we can do for the other person is to acknowledge that their feelings are theirs and we have compassion for them and we can care for them, but we are not responsible for them. And that lets them be them and them deal with what they have to deal with while we continue to hopefully guide and lead a compassionate school. And coming back to our lifeguard image, what I love to complete this with is maybe those of you who went to summer camp or the beaches, kids might remember, the lifeguards always seem to be the coolest, most relaxed people around. They're walking around, sunglasses, maybe twirling a whistle around their finger. They're responsible for tons of people and they're responsible for their lives. But they're pretty relaxed because this is their job. They've been trained and they're going to do a good job of it. Now, I won't vouch for every teenage lifeguard being at that level, but I will vouch for most school principals I work with. You're trained, you're approaching this from a professional and effective perspective, and the more that you can have compassion for the other that you're talking to, as well as for yourself, the more effectively and the more humbly and the more humanely you will be able to approach these difficult conversations. That's my perspective, at least. I would love to hear more of your perspectives and more of your dilemmas. You can reach us by replying to our Substack, Leadership Lenses, finding us on LinkedIn at Barry Kislowitz or Kislowitz Consulting, or visiting our website, www.kislowitzconsulting.com. Have a great